What if I told you that a second-place finish meant more to a Formula One driver than over half of his career wins? Sounds absurd, right? Well, Oscar Piastri just said exactly that, and once you hear why, you might actually start to question how you measure success yourself. We're talking about the 2026 Japanese Grand Prix at Suzuka, a race that on paper looks like just another P2 for the McLaren driver, but according to Piastri, that single result ranks higher on his personal achievement list than at least 50% of his 9 Grand Prix victories. And the reason has nothing to do with champagne or trophies and everything to do with a brutal start to his season that almost broke him. Now think about that for a second. A guy who knows how to win, who has stood on the top step 9 times in F1, is telling the world that a non-win felt like a bigger triumph. That's a mystery you can't ignore, and we're going to unpack it piece by piece. So here's the context. Piastri rolled into the 2026 season with massive expectations. He's a proven race winner, a future champion in many eyes, and his home race in Australia was supposed to be the perfect launchpad. Instead, disaster struck before the race even started. During the reconnaissance laps, he crashed. A driver error, a moment of misjudgment, and just like that, his Australian Grand Prix was over before the lights went out. 0 points, a gut punch. Then came China. Both McLarens were hit with electrical gremlins before the race, and while his teammate Landon Norris managed to salvage something, Piastri finished the main race outside the points, collecting only a measly 3 points from the sprint. So after 2 rounds, this elite driver sat near the bottom of the standings with a total of 3 points. The pressure was already mounting. Fans, media, even his own mind whispering that things were slipping away. But here's where the story takes a turn, and trust me, it's the kind of turn that separates good drivers from the truly great ones. Instead of panicking, Piastri went to Japan with a singular focus: control what you can control. And that weekend at Suzuka, he executed what he now calls the most complete performance of his career. He extracted everything from himself in practice, he got painfully close to perfection in qualifying, and in the race, he wrung every last drop of performance out of that McLaren. He finished second, beaten by 15 seconds, a gap that might look huge on the timing screens, but according to Piastri, that P2 felt like a masterpiece because he knew deep down he had left absolutely nothing on the table. Now I'm going to let you in on why that mindset is so rare and why it exposes a massive flaw in how we typically judge success, not just in racing, but in life. The history books, the stat sheets, the highlight reels, they'll all tell you that Oscar Piastri finished second at the 2026 Japanese Grand Prix. They'll tell you he was beaten by a faster car and that he added 18 points to his tally. What they won't tell you is that inside that second-place finish was a driver who had battled back from a confidence-shattering crash, electrical chaos, and a points deficit that could have derailed his entire year. And that's exactly what Piastri means when he says he'd rank that P2 above half his wins. It's not about the trophy, it's about the internal victory of knowing you gave every ounce of yourself and left nothing to chance. He actually said, "I left that weekend happier than I probably left half the races I've won in my career." That's a direct quote from his interview on the High Performance podcast, and it hits different when you understand the context. He admitted that some of his actual wins came with a lingering feeling of, "I could have done more." Maybe luck played a role, maybe the car advantage was so huge that his own contribution felt diluted. But at Suzuka, every millisecond of lap time, every decision, every breaking point was him. And that's where I've got to jump in with my own take. I think there's something incredibly refreshing about a top-level athlete admitting that satisfaction doesn't always come from the result everyone else sees. In a world obsessed with outcomes, Piastri is pointing to the process. And honestly, who among us hasn't felt that same weird disconnect? You nail a presentation at work, but the client goes with someone else. You still feel proud. You train harder than ever for a race and finish 5th, yet you're buzzing because you know you couldn't have given more. It's a healthy kind of relationship with achievement, and it's easy to mock until you find yourself in that exact situation. Now let's keep it real for a moment, because I know some of you might be thinking this is just a PR spin to cover up a bad start to the season. And I'd say sure, that's always a possibility in the polished world of F1 media, but the raw detail with which Piastri described that weekend suggests otherwise. He talked about the tiny margins in qualifying, how he fine-tuned his driving to a level he rarely touches, and how he felt in complete harmony me with the car. He didn't just say he tried hard, he gave specific, almost technical insight into where he found performance. And let's not forget, Suzuka is one of the most unforgiving circuits on the calendar. It punishes hesitation and rewards absolute commitment. For a driver coming off a confidence crisis, to attack that track and nail it is no small feat. So as we head deeper into the 2026 season, Piastri now sits 6th in the driver's standings with 21 points from 3 rounds. That's not where he wants to be, but if his Suzuka performance is any indicator, the mental reset might be the spark that ignites a charge back up the order. He's made it clear that his barometer for success is no longer just the trophy cabinet, it's the mirror. Can you look yourself in the eye after a weekend and say you gave it everything? If yes, then the points and the podiums become a byproduct, not the goal. That philosophy, according to reports from within the McLaren camp, is also having a fascinating effect on the team dynamic. Norris and Piastri have a famously healthy rivalry, but when one driver shifts the focus to internal mastery, it can either elevate the team or create tension. For now, it seems to be doing the former. Engineers love a driver who can articulate where the lap time is, and that's exactly the level of self-awareness Piastri demonstrated in Japan. He's taking ownership of his performance in a way that makes him bulletproof to outside noise, and that right there is the lesson we can all steal. Whether you're racing at 300 kilometers an hour or just trying to get through a tough week, the satisfaction of knowing you gave your all is something no one can take away from you. And honestly, that's the kind of maturity that separates good from great, not just on the track, but in the game of life. So the next time you see a second-place finish and shrug, remember what Oscar Piastri said. Sometimes a P2 can be worth more than a win, because it carries the weight of every obstacle you overcame just to stand there. Thanks for sticking with me through this breakdown. If this perspective hit home for you, drop a comment below. I'd genuinely love to know if you've ever experienced a moment where a non-win felt like your biggest victory. Hit that like button if you want more deep dives into the psychology behind the sport, and subscribe so you don't miss the analysis you won't get anywhere else.